Coming soon on Crown Jewels. It's, well, coming soon. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to PLD Project's Crown Jewels. I am your host, PLD, and this is the podcast where I take you on that journey through the entirety of the Queen catalog, song by song, version by version, as we figure out which version of every song is the titular crown jewel or best version to put into an ultimate playlist. And of course, I give you some notes, some quotes, and we see if the track slides into my top 10 Queen-related songs of all time. This week, coming soon. Written by Roger Taylor. We have 2+ versions to listen to today. 2+, well, I'll explain that as we get there. But the main versions we're going to listen to, the album version, of course, from 1980's The Game, and an early demo entitled Sandbox. And I have a little bit to say about that when we get there, but let's get to the notes and quotes and all the history and stuff before we start listening to these bad boys, all right? Like I said, written by Roger Taylor, features Freddie on lead and backing vocals, Roger also on lead and backing vocals, drums, guitar, synthesizer, possibly bass. This is one of those songs where I'm not sure if it's Roger or John doing bass. It might sound a little bit more like Roger in my estimation, but I could be wrong. It does feature Brian on guitar as well. It's interesting that Roger and Freddie share lead vocals because they're actually singing kind of a duet, but it's not a normal duet. There's no trading off. The voices just blend very well together. They're kind of singing the same thing at once. Occasionally, you hear some Roger kind of harmony vocals at one point. You hear some Freddie vocals, but they play off each other very, very well. Initially, this track was recorded for the Jazz album, and then initially as a B-side for this album, but then ended up switching place with A Human Body, which we'll talk about in a moment. This song never played live as far as I know, not by the band and not by Roger solo. I already got some quotes from the boys. Roger, originally this idea was a sort of anti-advertising song, really, coming soon to your neighborhood. But in the end, it was meant to be a modern pop song, that's all. I certainly didn't have any intention of saving the world when I was writing it. And producer extraordinaire, the second of two big producers from Queen, Reinhold Mack, in 2000 said that Roger Taylor was perhaps the most enthusiastic one when it came to looking for a new sound. I worked a lot with Roger, more than with the other band members, because Roger needed my help. Roger wasn't particularly satisfied with his previous songwriting work. I think he found a new style different from his songs on past albums, but he didn't know how to improve on it. I remember Roger wrote 3 great songs for The Game. All of them caused arguments within the group. There was a song called Coming Soon, this one of course, which Roger at first thought should be the B-side, giving its place on the album to another of his tracks, A Human Body. But Brian and Freddie objected that if A Human Body was included, the record would turn out to be too melodic, as they'd already written 3 slow-paced songs for it. Finally, they convinced Roger, who felt particularly proud of A Human Body, and Coming Soon was used. The song is a good example of the sound we got for this album, and in general for the following records up to A Kind of Magic. And finally, Roger Taylor and Goldmine stated, Coming Soon is all about the rhythm and the hook line. It's all about big, fat, rhythmic sounds on that one, and it reflects where I'm able to channel that kind of approach into my writing. All right, well, let's listen to our versions. We have the studio version and Sandbox. And how do we do it? Well, if you look in the show notes, there'll be a Google Doc with links on it for you to click on when I tell you to. So just be ready for that. I will tell you to pause me, click on that link, come back, and we'll talk about it. So let's go listen to that album version first. 1980's The Game. Be back soon. And there it is. That is a great new wave rocker, really. Some great Roger backing vocals throughout. Lead and backing vocals, really. I don't know what you would call it lead, what you would call it backing. But I love his ooh, ah. Those backing vocals there, spot on, add so much to the song. Great crunchy guitar on this one. I do love the rhythm of this guitar. I know it's Roger and Brian both doing guitars, so good on them both. Freddie has this great, kind of strange sounding harmony with himself throughout the lyrics, throughout the verses rather, but I kind of like it, I kind of dig it. Always kind of panning up and down around the song through the different sides of the headphones and also through different, I'm always, like different, like they always mess around with different kind of pitches, different kind of sections to sing. It kind of adds a kind of fun to the song. I never know where it's going to go. The guitar solo is probably the best part of the song. Got to say, Brian started ripping over here. I think that's definitely Brian, the guitar solo. Definitely Brian there. It's a fine track. It's a fun track. Not going to save the world, just like Roger said, but it is kind of a fun track to listen to. I do also want to talk about the DVD-A version of this song. Now, DVD-A stands for DVD audio. It's a digital format that delivered high-fidelity audio content on a DVD. First published in March of 1999. It was in the early 2000s. Queen had two albums remixed this way, Night at the Opera and The Game. Definitely added a little more sound to it. A lot of people do like this version. It's a 5.1 channel surround sound, usually, things of that nature. Now, the big difference here is I haven't really talked about them before because they are basically the same tracks, sometimes just better, higher quality. If you can get to listen to them, it's wonderful to listen to. But as far as we're concerned, it's not going to do a whole lot. However, with that in mind, Coming Soon actually has a different mix than the album version. Not extraordinarily different. I'm not going to say it's like, the end of the world if you can't hear it, but it's something I do want to point out. Why was it a different version? Well, let Brian talk about it. Brian on his website said, for Roger's Coming Soon track, not all of the original tracks used for the mix survived. Somehow a final mixtape must have been lost, so the boys reassembled what they could, and then used different takes of, for instance, the vocal harmonies at the beginning. Roger gave this the okay when he popped in to hear it. I think the mixes for this and also Rocket are distinct improvements on the original. They were done in loops, as was Dragon Attack, so the chaps have now been able to give them the kick drum a good old thumping low end. It's cool. I did not mention, Dragon Attack or Rocket, but Coming Soon does have those distinct extra vocal tracks from Roger. I wish you could hear it. If you do come across this, I would suggest purchasing it. It is a great, great investment, even if the format doesn't really exist anymore. But with that being said, I did listen to it. I do like the extra vocals in the beginning, the extra harmonies. It's not entirely different compared to, like, saying a remix or a extra version or a demo version, but it is slightly different, so I figured I'd have to point it out. Okay, let's move on to the other version we're going to listen to here. I do have the YouTube link for. That's Sandbox. Click on that. Come back. We will talk about it. Now, okay, you'd be forgiven if you listened to that and said, that doesn't sound much like Coming Soon, because I kind of thought the same thing. It is a jam session from 1979. It's mainly Freddie on piano with Roger on drums and John on bass. It's basically more of a jam session than anything else. In fact, it's such a different thing that I actually almost made it its own episode and gave it its own track and give it its own slot in Crown Jewels. But it is noted through sources that this was the demo that eventually led into Coming Soon. So I figured, well, it's probably best I put it here with Coming Soon, considering Coming Soon didn't have many alternatives anyway. I wouldn't have been able to tell you without getting told that myself, but I listen to it now and I can hear some similarities at times, so I definitely could see that it had its very, very, very beginning roots here, but really it's just a jam session. Really just kind of Freddie got some whoops going on in there, a few random vocals here and there. Brian's not even involved at all, so I mean, it is what it is. It's kind of fun, right? Well, all right, well, that's all we're going to listen to this week, though. So that means we got to go on and go to the rest of the episode, which is me talking about rating the track and figuring out which is the crown jewel. Well, let's rate the track first, because on a scale of 1 to 11, because we always turn things up to 11 here on PLD Projects, well, Coming Soon's not my favorite. I'm not going to lie. It's fun. I won't skip it. But at the same time, I can't remember the last time I went and said, I want to listen to Coming Soon. So I'm going to give this one a 6.5 out of 11. I do love the vocal takes. I do love the guitar solo. But at the end of the day, it is more pop fluff than I need to listen to in my life, generally speaking. So it is what it is. What can I say? Obviously, not into my top 10 Queen-related tracks of all time. Unfortunately for you, Coming Soon. But that's all right. That's all right. What's the crown jewel version? That's what you got to know. I have 3 versions I'm ranking, even though I only talked to you about DVD-A and didn't really get you to listen to it. I do count that as a different version enough. So, number 3 on the top 3 there, Sandbox. That's the last one. I'm not going to put that as a crown jewel. It's barely a song. It's a jam session in the studio. Fun to listen to, but not my crown jewel for sure. Next up, it's the album version, because I like the DVD-A version. I do like the DVD-A version with the extra vocals in the beginning. What can I say? Maybe it's partially because I don't hear this one as much, because I put on the game on anytime on Spotify or on YouTube or even put my CD on. I generally just hear the album version. So this gives me a little extra kick of that, oh, you didn't hear that part before. That might be all there is to it. But I do think it's slightly a better version. I think the drums sound better as well. So I'm going to give it that, the DVD version. Of course, it's not going to be available on Spotify. So for my Ultimate playlist that's on Spotify, that will include the album version as the next best thing. But on my YouTube playlist that I'm making for myself, I will slide that DVD version for myself. So there it is. All right, that's it for this week then, folks, I guess. Next week, we have a big one. A big one. This is one of my favorite Queen tracks of all time. I have a feeling this is going to slide to my top 10. That's how confident I am. It's another Brian May power ballad. 2 out of 3 weeks now has been Brian May power ballads. This one was a single. This one will be Save Me. And no, it's not the song from Smallville. All right, guys, I will see you next week. Thank you so much. Thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for liking, subscribing. Thanks for joining the Patreon. If you've done that, patreon.com/PLD Projects with Austin Goodell and Brendan Buckingham. Great crew there. We actually can get early versions of Crown Jewels. I record these about a week early. I usually put them up about that same time. For the $5 and up tier, you get to listen to me talk about Queen even earlier than YouTube. But hey, that's if you can afford it. I get it. I totally get times are tight. But if you can help me in any other way, battle the almighty algorithm, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. So that'll be next week. Come back for more. Until then, God save the Queen. Bye now.